And then on the women's side, they keep seeing these trips and these gifts and all this lavish living that isn't even a reality in 95% of the cases, I would argue. But that now makes them feel like, well, why can't I have that? And so rather than being happy with a dude who can be at least, because I still believe as a man, you need to at the very least be financially stable.
No one.
You ain't got to be rich, but you got to be able to stand on your own 2 feet.
Right.
But there are a lot of women, or at least a lot of quote unquote desirable women who they're putting money on a high pedestal, but everybody's paying a price though, because you focus too much on trying to date out your league. You're going to find yourself, getting screwed over in that situation. A lot of those women focusing on the wrong thing, ending up in bad, toxic relationships. So everybody needs to understand, once upon a time, we were happier with less, not in a bad way, but in a good, healthy way. And now I do think that it's gotten a little ridiculous.
Now, I'm a red pill channel, but I got a lot of guys over here that purple pill that want to get into relationships, still believe in love and all that stuff. So for the guys, and I would say that's the majority of the guys over here. I would say 85% of the guys over here still, believe in love, still want to settle down one day. So for those guys, I felt like it was fair to have a relationship guy on here, a guy who still believes in, love and all that stuff like that.
A lot of my recent videos have touched on guys who believe in spending money on women for sex, more specifically for casual sex. And plain and simply, I've never agreed with that. I mean, really, when you analyze the difference in appeal of a direct verbal game dating coach, such as myself, versus an indirect verbal game dating coach, there's a few differences between those two schools of thought. Well, first of all, on a quick side note, see, this is why I don't like this whole... Remember I did at least 2 or 3 videos attacking that belief that the game is the game is the game, something that Alpha Male Strategies, that was his first response when a lot of my followers started accusing him of ripping off a lot of my talking points from my book, The Possibility of Sex. His response was, the game is the game is the game. But here's one thing that makes that invalid right off the blocks is there's a big difference between direct verbal game advice and indirect verbal game advice. Because see, when you say the game is the game is the game, that's like suggesting that all game is essentially just alike. It's essentially universal and just alike. And that's bullshit. Because again, just on verbal game alone, there's 2 main versions of verbal game, which again is direct verbal game and indirect verbal game. There's huge differences between direct verbal game advice and indirect verbal game advice. So how can anybody say the game is the game is the game? Or like I just mentioned, money. People say the game is the game is the game. I know guys like myself who are totally against the idea of spending money on women for casual sex. Then you got indirect guys that always incorporate the idea of spending money on women for sex. See, part of the appeal of receiving advice from a direct verbal game dating coach, I just speak for my own teachings, because I don't even know how many other direct dating coaches are out there. Used to be mainly, at one time, it was just me and David X. Me and David X were pretty much, for a long time, me and David X were pretty much the only 2 dating coaches in the manosphere that were at least well-known that promoted direct verbal game. Everybody else either exclusively promoted indirect verbal game or they promoted a hybrid of direct verbal game and indirect verbal game. They were in one of those 2 categories. They either promoted exclusively indirect verbal game or they promoted a hybrid of direct verbal game and indirect. Matter of fact, I just had a Patreon subscriber I did a consultation with. That's how he described Lucario. And I've heard that before about Lucario. Like Lucario, some people look at Lucario as a direct verbal game dating coach, such as myself, but I've heard other people say, no, he promotes some indirect stuff too. Yeah, most people I've heard about Lucario, and Lucario can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard he promotes a hybrid of both. He's not exclusively direct, and he's not exclusively indirect. From what I've heard, he's kind of like 2/3 direct and 1/3 indirect. But yeah, that's what this client I was just working with, he said he used to follow Lucario. He said Lucario was kind of both. But yeah, for a long time, me and David X were the only two guys that were exclusively direct. Yeah, everybody else, every other dating coach in the manosphere, again, was either exclusively indirect or they promoted a hybrid of direct and indirect. But I was going to say that one of the appeals of direct, I'll start with direct. The main people who come to a direct coach such as myself is guys who are looking to, number one, overcome their fear of rejection, and avoid investing as much time and or money in their pursuit of getting laid as possible. It's guys who want to avoid investing as much time and or money as possible in their pursuit of getting laid. So if you go to my community page, I got a poll related to that. I got an opinion poll related to that. Because see, each of my 4 modes, as I said on the community page poll, has a focus to it. Each of my 4 modes centers around one particular focus. For example, mode 1. A mode 1 guy, his main focus is, I don't want to waste time and or money in my pursuit of sexual companionship. And even more so, I definitely don't want to waste time and or money on women who are not genuinely interested in having sex with me. That's the main focus of a mode 1 guy, is a guy that doesn't want to, number one, with the women who are interested in having sex with him, he doesn't really want to invest that much time and or money prior to having sex with those women. And even more so, he doesn't want to waste time and or money with women who are not genuinely interested in him. That's the focus of a mode 1 guy. A mode 2 guy, for guys who regularly exhibit some variation of mode 2 behavior, that's basically when you want to get laid without risking being criticized by women, being insulted by women, being perceived as some type of asshole or jerk, and without being also perceived as being rude or disrespectful or crass. That's a mode 2 person. So a mode 2 person is a person who wants to get laid, but he doesn't want to be criticized, insulted, or disliked by women. He doesn't want to be criticized, insulted, or disliked by women. He wants women to say positive, flattering things about him, regardless of whether he sleeps with them or he gets rejected. He wants women to say stuff like, oh, he's a great guy. Henry, he was a good, nice, sweet, well-mannered, classy, gentleman type guy. A mode 3 guy is simply a guy who doesn't want to be rejected or ignored at all. Period. That's the focus of a mode 3 guy. A mode 3 guy is a guy who is going to do almost anything and everything within his power to prevent and avoid being rejected by a woman that he's attracted to, and to prevent and avoid being ignored, indefinitely ignored by a woman that he's attracted to. In worst case scenario, a mode 3 guy is the type of guy, he would rather receive negative attention from women than no attention at all. Yeah, I'm sure some of you all have met guys like that, or you might even been a guy like that yourself. I've known guys like that throughout my life. There's some guys, they would actually rather receive negative attention from women than no attention at all. But yeah, that's the main focal point of a Mode 3 guy. Mode 3 guy is just simply a guy who's going to do everything possible to prevent himself from being rejected or ignored. 2 or 3 examples would be not approaching women at all. Not approaching women at all. What I call in my book a Mode 3 timid. The reason why some guys don't approach women at all because they can't handle being rejected. But the downside is they are going to ultimately be ignored by those women if they don't approach them at all. But yeah, there's some guys, they would rather not approach a woman at all than to approach a woman and be rejected. That's what I call in my book a Mode 3 timid. Another example of guys who try to avoid rejection at all is guys who engage in what's known as fun clubbing. Fun clubbing, when you, for a period of days, weeks, or months, pretend like you're content with being a woman's purely platonic friend when you know deep down you want that woman to be your next long-term girlfriend or your next casual sex lover. But you don't want to be rejected abruptly. So you fun club for X number of days, X number of weeks, X number of months. Guys who, lie to women and give women a misleading impression that they want a long-term, emotionally profound, strictly monogamous relationship when they actually want short-term, non-monogamous casual sex. The reason why they lying to those women and misleading and manipulating those women, plain and simple, because they don't want to be rejected. So that's the focus of a Mode 3 guy. Mode 3 guy, he just doesn't want to be rejected. And secondly, he doesn't want to be indefinitely ignored by women he's attracted to. And then finally, Mode 4. A Mode 4 guy is a guy whose focal point primarily centers around insulting women, agitating women, and antagonizing women. Criticizing women and antagonizing women. That's almost more important to him than getting laid. He gets off, a Mode 4 guy is a guy who gets off on criticizing women, insulting women, leaving them feeling agitated or frustrated, or just generally antagonizing them. He likes to, and I know a lot of guys in the manosphere who are like that. I've heard guys like admit that, either on message boards or on podcasts and live streams. There's some guys who have admitted that. They say, man, I just love pissing women off. I've heard a few guys say that. They say, I love to talk to women just so I can piss them off. See, that's a classic sign of a Mode 4 guy. If you get off on pissing women off, just saying something just to get under their skin and antagonize them, that means you're a Mode 4 type dude. Whereas, so again, the emphasis of direct guys like myself, most advice centers around helping guys, number one, overcome rejection, their fear of rejection, and number two, not putting themselves in a position where women could cause them to waste a significant amount of time and or money. Indirect guys don't focus on saving guys time and money. That's not the focus of an indirect verbal game dating coach. Indirect verbal game dating coaches center on minimizing your instances of rejection. That's what an indirect dating coach is going to focus on. His more so, time and money is more a secondary factor. His main factor is minimizing as much as possible, minimizing your instances of experiencing rejection. Number one goal for an indirect verbal game dating coach, they never ever want you to experience quick, abrupt, harsh, straightforward type rejection. Like, in other words, getting rejected like within the first 5 minutes or less of your very first conversation with a woman. An indirect verbal game dating coach never wants you to experience that. That's one big difference between a direct verbal game dating coach and an indirect verbal game dating coach. Indirect verbal game dating coaches, they never ever, number one, they don't want their clients to experience rejection, period. And at minimum, they don't want their clients to ever experience very quick, abrupt, unnecessarily harsh, and really straightforward type rejection. So a lot of their advice is not going to exclude investing time, spending time with a woman before you fuck them for the first time, or spending money on a woman before you fuck them for the first time. Indirect dating coaches, they're not going to slam that idea. Not only are they not going to criticize the idea of either one of those two things, in many cases, they're going to promote it. They're going to promote it. Yes, indirect verbal game dating coaches, they will promote the idea. I just did a video about that in my response to Satan Center. The example of them promoting spending time with a woman is under the category of what they call rapport building. Almost all indirect verbal game dating coaches are going to emphasize the concept of rapport building, which involves spending a significant amount of time with a woman non-sexually before you fuck her. You notice I don't emphasize that shit. And then secondly, like AMS, oh man, let me get to AMS for a second. Now, I just did a response in my very last video to the young black male YouTube content creator named Bernard Riley. Now, he had a video that somebody alerted me to about alpha male strategies interviewing this women's relationship coach named Stéphane Labossiere. He's one of Derek Jackson's ace lieutenants and business colleagues. And he played some excerpts from the interview. Here was the most interesting thing that AMS said. I did a video not too long ago where I was talking about, there's a current trend of people trying to expose certain dating coaches and PUAs. Well, here's interesting enough how AMS, more or less, you could say, exposed himself. He said something interesting in an excerpt of his interview with Stéphane Labossiere. He said, I'm going to be slightly paraphrasing his words, but he said, even though I more so emphasize helping men score casual sex from women, he said, probably 85% of the men that seek out email consultations from me and Skype and telephone consultations from me are guys who are looking for their next long-term girlfriend or future wife. He called those guys purple pill guys. He said, I got a lot of purple pill guys. He said, probably 85% of my consultation clients are purple pill guys. Here's what was funny, man. I browsed through the comment section. Only about 2 or 3 guys called him out on that. There should be much more guys calling him out on that. Because what does that tell you? What does that tell you? Number one, if you've read AMS's 2 dating advice books, you'll know none of the advice in his dating advice books is about finding your next long-term girlfriend or future wife. That's number one. It's pretty much all about the pursuit of casual sex. Okay? That's number one. But yet he said, by his own admission, that 85% of his clients who seek out email consultations or Skype and telephone consultations from him are guys who are looking for their next girlfriend or future wife. So, what does that scream out at you? There's a couple things, really. The most prominent thing, in a nutshell, he's not catering to his demographic market. That's the biggest thing. He's not catering to his demographic market. If most of his video content and the content of his books is centering on advice that's going to help you score more casual sex, but by his own admission, 85% of his clients are looking for their next long-term girlfriend or future wife, then that means he's giving the wrong advice to the wrong demographic market. That's what that means in simple terms. He's giving the wrong advice to the wrong demographic market, which is a huge business no-no. You can say that's a business strategy no-no. You always want to cater to your demographic market. I mean, you take me, for example. Like, if you remember about it a little over a year ago, when it started around the time I first got engaged, which was Valentine's Day of last year, I had a lot of guys coming to me, like either asking me or telling me. Guys would say, Alan, I bet you're about to change your content, aren't you? Now that you're engaged to be married. I bet all your 90% of your content now is going to center on long-term relationships and marriage. And I did a couple videos where I basically said, no, that ain't true. Have I lived up to my word? You notice I still focus on casual sex, even though I'm married. Even though I'm not really indulgent in casual sex no more. A lot of my content still centers on the pursuit of short-term non-monogamous casual sex. But I remember starting with mid-February of last year for like the next 3, 4, 5 months, I had a lot of people that were assuming that I was going to make a significant change in my content. See, if I did that, let's say I had done that, and I switched all my content to things centering on marriage and long-term romantic relationships, and I pretty much stopped doing content about casual sex, I would have been making the same mistake that Alpha Male Strategies is making right now. I would have been ignoring my primary demographic market. See, as a business person, you got to always pay attention to who is your demographic. There's different demographic factors. One would be like age. Like, is your primary demographic older men or younger men? That would be one example of a demographic factor. Level of education. Is most of your clients highly educated men or men who never stepped foot on a college campus? Is most of your clients good-looking guys, fat guys, short guys? What's their physical makeup? What type of income are they earning? Most of your clients broke guys making a decent amount of money, guys that are very wealthy? What's the race? Are most of your clients black? Are most of your clients white? Are most of your clients Asian? See, all those type of things play into your demographic target market. So, like, you take me, for example. I give a few examples of my demographic market. In terms of what they're interested in, as far as like what type of relationship, I would say, these are all rough estimates, I would say at least 60% of my clients want advice that centers on helping them score more casual sex without spending a lot of time with women or spending a lot of money on women. That's at least 60% of my demographic market. Number two, I would say about roughly 30% of my demographic market is men who are interested in long-term non-monogamous relationships with women. Generally what's known as polyamory. That's what polyamory is. Long-term non-monogamous. And I would say along with polyamory advice, they want advice on BDSM. That's about 30% of my male clients. They want advice on polyamory and or BDSM. Another 5% would be guys who are interested in their next long-term girlfriend, future wife. Now, I would say that represents about 5% of my clients. And the other 5% would be guys that are interested in being what's known as a serial monogamous. I wrote an article in the Negro Manosphere about a serial monogamous is almost halfway between a long-term boyfriend and a casual sex womanizer. When you're a serial monogamous, that means you engage in a series of short-term, strictly monogamous relationships with women. One celebrity used to be known for that before he got married. Two celebrities, actually. Warren Beatty, back in the day, used to be, a lot of people used to throw that label on Warren Beatty, that he was a serial monogamist. Derek Jeter used to be categorized as a serial monogamist. Yeah, serial monogamous is, say, for example, when you indulge in a lot of relationships that last no less than 2 to 3 months and no longer than 9, 10, or 11 months, but they're strictly monogamous in nature. Yeah, they don't last any less than, I say no less than 2 months and no longer than 10 or 11 months that are strictly monogamous in nature. That's what's called a serial monogamous. Whereas a womanizer is a guy that always has 2 or more sex partners at the same time. They're never strictly monogamous. They always have a minimum of 2 sex partners at the same time. That would be a womanizer. So yeah, that would make up my demographic in terms of what type of companionship they're interested in. Couple other things, like racially, I'm pretty diverse. I would say, I've talked about this before, my largest client base is Caucasian. Yeah, the highest percentage of my total client base is Caucasian. Number 1 would be, I have Caucasian males as my clients. Number 2 would be Asian. Asian males would be number 2. Hispanic males would be number 3. And black males, believe it or not, would be as low as 4. I would say number 4 would be a tie between black men and Middle Eastern men. Black men and Middle Eastern men. See, a lot of people here on YouTube assume that most of my clients are black. No, they're not, actually. Yeah, black men only make up about, they make up the number 4 position of my total client base, particularly over the last 20 years. Yeah, my number 1 client base is Caucasian men. So that's my client base racially. Age-wise, I would say most of my clients are younger than me, but I have a few that are older than me. But I would say, yeah, probably 2/3 of my clients are guys that are between 18 and 35. Between 18 and 35. That would probably be about 2/3 of my clients. Then secondly would be clients that are between roughly 36 and 49. 36 and 49 will be my second largest clients. And third would be clients that are 50 years of age or older. I got some clients in their 60s. Yeah, I got at least 3 minimum. I got 3 clients that are in their 60s. Yep. So anyway, going quickly back to AMS, man. Yeah, man, if there's a mistake he's making, again, it's by his own admission. He said that even though most of his advice centers on the pursuit of casual sex, he said 85% of his clients seek out consultations from him that center around finding their next long-term girlfriend or future wife. Then that means, what does that mean he needs to do? Basically, he needs to switch up his advice. If 85% of his consultation clients are coming to him for advice about long-term relationships and marriage, then that means that no less than 85% of his content of his videos and his books needs to be about the pursuit of long-term relationships. But you know and I know, AMS ain't gonna do that. AMS, because he knows he would lose a certain degree of credibility if he did that. Guys would start calling him a beta male. They would start calling him purple pill and all that type of shit. He ain't gonna do that. Just for credibility and popularity purposes, he ain't gonna do that. So for him to admit that, if guys are still listening, I'll put it this way, if guys are still listening to him and their interest in casual sex, what does that mean for them? That they just listening to that guy for entertainment. They ain't really seeking out no consultations with him. Because again, by his own admission, he said only about 15% of the guys that follow him seek out consultations with him for advice on pursuing casual sex. So that means the rest of the guys who are interested in casual sex who listen to AMS and follow him, they just listen to him for entertainment. That's That's a victory for me. That's vindication for me. Why? I mentioned, I don't want to get into a long digression about AMS, but a lot of people, when they want to criticize me, they always say, oh, you know, Alan, you just jealous of AMS because he got more YouTube subscribers than you and more Patreon subscribers than you. And I've always said, I don't care about those two things. Definitely, I don't care about the YouTube subscribers because I've always said, man, how many YouTube subscribers you have is not an accurate representation of the quality of your content. I don't know how many times I've said that. Who proved that in the last week? And I'm not even really familiar with this guy. There's this guy, what's his name? I just became familiar with him. Obese black guy, I think his username on YouTube is EDP445 or something like that. He's this obese black man, lives in Philadelphia. Most of his videos were about his love for the NFL Philadelphia Eagles. And then he had videos about him eating food on camera. Guess how many subscribers this guy had? This guy had 3 million subscribers. 3 million subscribers. And I watched a couple excerpts from his videos. Low quality bullshit. I don't want anybody to ever suggest to me that just because somebody has more YouTube subscribers than me, it automatically means that person has better content than me. That is bullshit. And that guy EDP, among other people, has proven that. That dude had 3 million subscribers, man. None of his content was high quality. Not that I watched all his videos, but just browsing through them. None of his shit was high quality. None of it. This dude was exposed for being a fucking pedophile. And he had 3 million subscribers. YouTube subscribers should be ashamed of themselves for following this fucking pedophile. And y'all always emphasizing how many YouTube subscribers get. That don't mean shit to me. That don't mean shit to me. Nothing. YouTube subscribers don't mean shit to me. And people always love to throw that in my face, particularly as it relates to AMS. Well, AMS, you're jealous. I don't give a fuck. This dude is giving the wrong advice to the wrong demographic market. Drops mic. Boom. But anyway, I still haven't gotten to the meat of this video. And I'm running out of time, so let me get to it. The main reason why I wanted to talk about on this video, and it somewhat relates to AMS. AMS has always promoted that the main thing you got to do to improve your success with women, even for casual sex, is to be about your purpose and improve your degree of career success and financial success. And I've been arguing for over 20 years, man. You don't need career success and financial success to score casual sex. You don't need that shit for casual sex. Well, let me slightly modify that. Some men do, but definitely not all men. I actually touched on this on a recent video. I said, here's the only time you need to spend money on women for casual sex. Is when you're severely deficient in the area of looks and or mouthpiece. Looks and or mouthpiece. If you're deficient in those two areas, then it's probably inevitable you're going to have to spend money on women. I'm going to say this, and it's not just to brag, but it's just to speak facts. Other than a handful of times that I've tricked with international women who didn't speak English, I never had to spend money on women for casual sex. Ever. Not in the form of tricking or even in the form of whining and dining. Neither one of those forms. Again, what is the difference between the two? I've covered this a million times. I don't want to go too long, explain the difference. Tricking is when you're offering women money in a very upfront, specific, and straightforward manner, specifically in exchange for their short-term, non-monogamous sexual companionship. Anytime you're offering women money, or it could be also material possessions, in exchange for their short-term, non-monogamous sexual companionship. And secondly, you're only offering them money or material possessions for guaranteed sex, Not for the possibility or probability of sex, but for guaranteed sex. That's tricking. Because a lot of guys got that confused in the manosphere. That's tricking. So again, tricking is when you're very upfront, specific, and straightforwardly honest with women about the fact that you want to engage in an episode of short-term, non-monogamous, casual sex with them, and you're willing to offer them money or material possessions to guarantee that you will experience that. That's tricking. Whining and dining is when you spend money on women, like say, for example, you take a woman out to lunch or dinner and a movie, and you spend money on them, and you're confidently or hopefully expecting that that woman is going to reward you with sex, but it ain't guaranteed. It ain't guaranteed that she's going to have sex with you after that dinner and movie. If it ain't guaranteed, that's whining and dining. If it's guaranteed, it's tricking. If it ain't guaranteed, that's whining and dining. Get it? Got it? Good. Okay. Going back to me, man. I ain't never had to do none of that shit for casual sex, man. I ain't never had to do none of that. And it ain't just me. I know a lot of guys I've known over the years that didn't have to resort to tricking or whining and dining to secure casual sex. And I ain't talking about with no average or less than average looking women either. I'm talking about with 6 and above. 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s. Maybe even a handful of 10s. I ain't had to spend no money. Here's a simple deal, man. I've covered this a million times already. Here are the 3 main things that contribute to your ability to engage in casual sex with women. Here are the 3 main things that contribute to your ability to engage in casual sex with women. And that would be your looks, your overall physical appearance, which includes your face, your physique, the way you dress, your grooming, your hygiene, all of that. Your overall physical appearance. That contributes to your ability to score casual sex with women. Number 2 is the combination of your level of personal self-confidence, your overall level of masculinity, and your degree of erotic dominance. Erotic dominance. Confidence, masculinity, and erotic dominance combined together, I refer to that as a man's masculine sex appeal. Masculine sex appeal. Third most important factor that contributes to a man's ability to score casual sex, and I would argue that out of the 3, this might be the most important, is your mouthpiece. How charismatic and persuasively charming your conversation skills are. Do you have the capability to verbally seduce women? Get women sexually aroused just by talking to them? I would say out of these 3 areas, this is the number 1 area I personally have the most credibility in. I would argue that I have more credibility in this area than any dating coach in the manosphere. Why? I used to get paid for phone sex. I talk about that and who say it again. I was, for at least 6 years, if not a little longer, I was a phone sex gigolo. Women paid me. I've had hundreds of women pay me money to listen to me talk dirty to them. Pay me money to listen to me talk dirty to them. I've had phone sex with over 2,100 women in my life, starting with 1991. From 1991 to now, I've had phone sex with over 2,100 women, with a sizable percentage of those women paying me money for it. That's where the legend of Alan Roger Currie first began, was related to my verbal seduction skills and my erotic dirty talk skills, which is why women gave me the nickname the king of verbal seduction and kinky erotic dirty talk. I didn't give myself that nickname. Women gave me that nickname. The king of verbal seduction and erotic dirty talk. Those are the 3 factors, man, that help you score casual sex. Now, what was noticeably missing out of those factors that contribute to the appeal of your sexual companionship? is career success and financial success. That ain't got shit to do with. Ain't got shit to do with scoring casual sex. Ain't got shit to do with it. Here are the 4 primary characteristics that contribute to enhancing the appeal of a man's non-sexual companionship. You know, I was probably the first dating coach in the manosphere to distinguish between the appeal of your sexual companionship and the appeal of your non-sexual companionship. I've already highlighted the 3 primary factors that contribute to the appeal of your sexual companionship. Now I'm going to talk about the 4 factors that contribute to the appeal of your non-sexual companionship. Number 1, how flattering and or how entertaining of a conversationalist you are. Are you a flattering and or entertaining conversationalist? I would arguably rank that number 1 as far as what contributes to the appeal of your non-sexual companionship. Women love to share the company non-sexually of a man who's either very flattering, very entertaining, or both. I talk about that in both The Possibility of Sex and my latest book, No Free Attention. I talk about that. Yeah, that's what women love, men who are a combination of flattering and entertaining. That's always going to give a boost to the appeal of your non-sexual companionship. Yep, a man with a great sense of humor and wit who is also willing to offer a boost to a woman's ego and self-esteem is definitely sought after by women. Number 2, how accommodating, compromising, and emotionally empathetic you are. How accommodating, compromising, and emotionally empathetic you are. This is what all women pretty much look for in a husband, a fiance, or a long-term boyfriend. It's highly unlikely that any woman is going to wait and date you long-term or become your wife if you don't have this characteristic. You got to be a combination of accommodating, compromising, and emotionally empathetic. Again, I talk about that in The Possibility of Sex and No Free Attention. That is almost a mandatory prerequisite for becoming a woman's long-term boyfriend, fiance, or husband. Yeah, it's a mandatory requirement. Number 3, and this gets to the characteristics that AMS and even a few other indirect dating coaches emphasize. Your level of career success and financial success. Your level of career success and financial success. Yeah, how financially established you are and how financially generous you are. Yeah, a man's level of career success, financial success, and social status definitely contributes to enhancing his appeal to women as a long-term boyfriend, fiance, or husband. I'm going to touch on that in like a minute or 2. I'm going to save that because that's the main thing I want to talk about. And then the final characteristic that enhances your non-sexual appeal to women is how willing you are to either get a woman pregnant if she doesn't have any kids, or if she already has kids, how willing you are to assist her in raising those kids. In other words, how willing you are to become a stepfather to some kids that a woman already has. One of the 2. Either your willingness to get a woman pregnant and help her raise your kids together, or if she already has kids and doesn't want any more, how willing you are to be a stepfather and help her raise the sons and or daughters that she had with another man. That will always get you extra bonus points with women when they're looking for a husband or a long-term romantic companion. Always, always, always. And again, I talk about that also in the Beta Male Revolution, Possibility of Sex, and to a brief extent in No Free Attention. So those are the 4 characteristics that help enhance your ability to attract women with your non-sexual companionship. See, now to do with characteristic number 3, financial, career success and financial success, see, this is in simple terms, this is what a lot of indirect dating coaches try to do. They try to slide characteristic number 3 onto to add it to the 3 characteristics that contribute to the appeal of your sexual companionship. A lot of indirect dating coaches try to do that. They do. They always try to do that. If you were to listen to indirect dating coaches, they would probably maintain the 3 factors I have, but they would add on to it your level of... I'm here to tell you for the upteenth time, man, you don't need career success or financial success to be a prolific womanizer. You really don't. The only exception, again, here will be the one exception, is if you severely lacking in the looks department or severely lacking in the mouthpiece department. I hear a siren. I hope you guys can't hear that. That's irritating the fuck out of me. If you think you need money for casual sex, you don't know women. In real simple terms, you don't know women. You don't really know women, man. See, first of all, I think some of you all are not talking about casual sex. Really. I'm going to just take at least 2 or 3 minutes to emphasize what is casual sex. See, casual sex, there's basically, I've always said, 4 types of sexual companionship you can have with a woman. Now, one of them is short-term, non-monogamous casual sex. Casual sex is what basically represents when you plan on having sex with a woman as brief as just one time, what's generally known as a one-night stand. It could also be as brief as 2, 3, or 4 times, like say from a Friday through a Sunday or a Thursday through a Saturday or something similar. That would be known as a weekend fling. You have sex, maybe, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And then usually no longer than about 3 to 5 weeks. That's casual sex. Okay, let me ask you the question. If you plan on having sex with a woman 1 time, 2 times, 5 times, 10 times, usually no more than 25 to 30 times for casual sex. No more. Casual sex usually means you're not going to have sex with a woman more than roughly 25 to 30 times. I'd say absolute maximum about 30 times tops. What the fuck you need to have a successful career or a lot of money in the bank for? Real talk. Well, why do you need to have a successful career and be driving a nice car and have a lot of money in the bank for? Why? That ain't got nothing to do with your ability to satisfy a woman in bed. Nothing. When it comes to casual sex, the number one thing that's important to women is, are you going to get their pussy as wet as possible, and are you going to leave them satisfied in bed? That's the most important thing when it comes to casual sex. First thing is, are you going to get their pussy as wet as possible? Are you going to get them aroused as much as possible in a relatively short period of time, which I know how to do just with my mouth, my verbal seduction skills, erotic dirty talk skills. And second, and probably more importantly, are you going to satisfy them in bed? They don't give a fuck that you work on Wall Street and drive a Jaguar. They could give a fuck. Women, when it comes to casual sex, they could give a fuck. You don't need that shit, man, for casual sex. Now, if you're talking about engaging in sex with a woman for more than, say, a period of like roughly 3, 4, 5 weeks, then you're not talking about casual sex. You're talking about polyamory. See, that's the difference between a fuck buddy and a polyamorous lover. A fuck buddy and a polyamorous. A lot of guys tend, I think, to confuse and conflate the two. There's a difference between a fuck buddy and a polyamorous lover. If you're planning on engaging in sex, and more specifically non-monogamous sex with a woman for a period of roughly 5 weeks or longer, then you're no longer really engaging in casual sex. You're engaging in polyamorous sex. Like, say, for example, if you plan on having non-monogamous sex with a woman for a period of, like, say, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or longer, that's not casual sex. Even though it's non-monogamous, that's not casual sex. That's polyamory. Now, with polyamory, your degree of career success and financial success might come into play, to at least to a minor degree, because you're going to inevitably end up spending time with that woman both sexually and non-sexually. Anytime you plan on spending time with a woman both sexually and non-sexually, that's when things like your career success and financial success is going to come into play to one degree or another. But if you just plan on spending time with a woman sexually, which is what you do with a fuck buddy, women can give a fuck about your career success or financial success. But see, like, everybody knows by now, Kevin Samuels popularized the concept of the high value man. He didn't create that term, but he popularized it. Actually, I heard that term as far back as 2013. I had a woman do a Q&A interview with me. She was from Southern California, the Los Angeles area. And she did a Q&A interview with me for her website, her blog. And that was the first time I ever heard that term. She asked me, she said, Alan, how does your Mode 1 approach contribute to a man enhancing his image and reputation as a high value man? And at the time, I wasn't familiar with that. So I said, what is that? I mean, what's the definition and description of a high value man? And this is what she said. Her definition and description of a high value man, she said, was a man that was making no less than 6 figures a year, which I think is in line with Kevin Samuels' definition and description. Number 2, she said a man who is college educated, preferably has a graduate degree. I never heard Kevin Samuels talk about college degrees in relation to being a high value man. But that's what this woman said, this Caucasian woman. That was her second characteristic. She said a guy who is college educated and preferably has a graduate degree, such as a law degree, medical degree, MBA, PhD of some sort. Third, she said had a high degree of social status in the community. I think that also falls in line with Kevin Samuels' criteria. Yeah, she said has a high degree of social status. Here was the biggest one, was number 4. Her number 4 was, she said, a guy who's very monogamy oriented and marriage oriented and wants to raise children. A guy who's monogamy oriented, marriage oriented, and wants to raise a family. I'm like 99.9% sure that doesn't fall in line with Kevin Samuels and some of these other guys. Because I've heard, again, one of the points of this video is I've heard guys talk about you need to be a high value man in order to score more casual sex. That's bullshit. Women don't care about if you're a high value man or not for casual sex. They really don't. I'm just being blunt with you. They really, really don't. They don't give a fuck. They care about, can you get their pussy wet to the highest degree possible, and are you going to make them come when you fuck them? Are you going to leave them sexually satisfied? That's all women care about when it comes to casual sex. That's all women care about when it comes to casual sex. If I add on one more thing, when it comes to casual sex, women want the freedom to be able to let out their true freaky side, their true kinky, their what I'll call their inner kinky freak side or their inner slut side. They want the freedom without judgment, without men passing judgment on them. Because most women are under pressure to present themselves as a good girl. I covered that in that Madonna Horror Complex video. That would be the other thing that motivates women to have casual sex, is the freedom to be their true freaky self without men passing judgment on them. They don't care about your fucking career success and financial success. They don't care about that bullshit. Where y'all getting that from? So, I'm out of time. Career success and financial success is highly overrated if your specific pursuit is short-term non-monogamous casual sex. End of story. End of story, man. Again, this brother right here, the only time I've had to pay for casual sex is when I was dealing with a woman that didn't speak English or understand English. Speaking basically a foreign woman. But for women that spoke fluent English, I can't think of a time I've had to resort to tricking or even whining and dining a woman before I had sex with her for the first time. Never. All my casual sex has come from my looks, my masculine sex appeal, and probably most notably, my outstanding mouthpiece. My outstanding mouthpiece, which again is what led to this brother being labeled by women, not myself, by women, and even some men have referred to me as the king of verbal seduction and kinky, erotic, dirty talk. This is my last video for April 2021. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Yes, sir.
Say it again.
Yes, sir.
Who's the king?
Alan, you're the king.
Say it again.
Alan, you're the king. You're dominating me.
Say it again.
Alan, you're dominating me right now. Mode 1. Mode 1. Daddy, can I go, please? You're the king.
Say it again.
Oh, you're the fucking king. Yes. Yes. Yes.
You're the king, Alan.
AKA the king of verbal seduction. You know, it's the tone of your voice, how seductive your intonations are, the vibrations that you could just reach out over the phone lines and stroke a woman's breast just by the sound of your voice, how you could make her pussy so wet just by the sound of your voice. That's actually very hot.
So you said my show was what?
I said your show is powerful.
Oh, say it again.
Your show is powerful.
I bet the king would fuck me really good.
Who's the king?
Alan Roger Currie.
Oh, yeah. Who's the king?
Alan Roger Currie. The king.
The king.
The king.
I have to agree with you on the communication piece, because I actually did take a session with Alan Roger Currie, and he gave me a line that I did not think was going to work, and it worked. And I was like, what the fuck?
Oh my God!
Man, he's the master. He's the master of the verbal seduction. He got that communication piece down pat.
It really worked. Yeah. It just simply worked, and I just didn't think it was going to work at all.
Some guys have natural handles. Some guys have a better natural shot, but you can always improve your shot. And sex is damn sure something you can fucking learn. Look, dude, you want to learn how to talk better? I'm hiring Alan Roger Currie to get my dirty talk game on, because it's always been something I want to get better at.
Verbal seduction, man. I'm like, clearly, this guy's the Michael Jordan of seduction. Like, come on now.